Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk, United Auto Workers are on strike after contract negotiations failed last night.
I think that's part of the strategy behind it, is to kind of keep both the company on its toes.
It's anyone's guess how long the strike will last. Some residents are pleading with transportation officials to prioritize a redesign of a major thoroughfare connecting Bloomington and Ellettsville.
It's a zoo out there. It really is. I mean, they're coming at you from every angle and the center, and it's a mess.
The timeline on the 46 corridor redevelopment plans coming up. Columbus is celebrating its famous architecture with the Exhibit Columbus Festival, a tour of the installations and how the city is integrating its design legacy into its future. Those stories plus the latest news headlines from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Perry Metz, sitting in for Joe Wren. United Auto Workers at 3 sites in the Midwest are on strike today after the union did not reach an agreement with the big 3 automakers Thursday night. The strikes in Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri target one factory each of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, the company that builds Chrysler and Dodge products. It's the first simultaneous strike against the big 3 and the first strike since 2019. But production will go on at their other facilities, including plants in Kokomo and Bedford. We're joined now by Indiana Public Broadcasting's Adam Mejia Reyes from Kokomo, where he's been following the strike. Adam, can you tell us why this is a targeted strike rather than everyone walking out?
Yeah, so the UAW is doing a lot of things differently this time around. These negotiations have been much more transparent, and the union is trying to target all 3 companies at once. Usually the union will just target one company to kind of set an example while continuing to negotiate with the other 2. So both as a measure of keeping the companies on their toes and also to be able to maintain its strike fund as it strikes at all 3, the union is doing these targeted strikes where at certain points throughout the negotiations, the union is going to announce new waves and add more and more plans to the strike until they get what they want from the companies. UAW president, our local UAW president in Bedford, Derek Cronin, had this to say on that.
I don't think we really knew what to expect, and I think that's part of the strategy behind it, is to kind of keep both the company on its toes.
What chance is there that the UAW could expand the strike?
It's really not clear at this point. We are, still we're several hours away from the deadline that passed last night, so the contract expired, and it's not clear whether the union and the automakers are really anywhere closer to getting a contract that the union is willing to give to its members to vote on. One of the big issues, obviously, as in most contract negotiations, is wages. So there is the union is asking for a 40% increase over the next 4 years. The companies are offering closer to 20%. So there's still that big deficit that we're not sure how long it's going to take for them to get closer on. I'm standing outside of the UAW Local 685 in Kokomo, which represents several Stellantis plants here in the city. And their president, Gary Quirk, had this to say.
If they don't come to the table, there'll be a second wave, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. So it's up to the company. If they want an agreement, then they'll go to the table and get us an agreement.
What plants in the state are likely to be affected?
So right now, actually, these Stellantis plants may get affected eventually. We are seeing they provide a lot of the parts that get used to assemble the cars that are made in the Toledo plant that went on strike, the Toledo, Ohio plant. So there is a concern that as that plant goes on strike longer, and if others assembly plants join it, the transmissions and such that the plants make here will no longer be needed, and those might eventually shut down, as Quirk talked about here.
The thing is if they shut the Toledo assembly plant goes down, they don't need transmissions. I mean, eventually it will affect us, absolutely.
Thank you, Adam, for your report. We appreciate it. Now we're joined by Callie Lichter for more headlines from around the state. Callie?
Thank you, Perry. Bloomington City Council has rejected a draft piece of legislation widely seen as an effort to prevent homeless individuals from camping on sidewalks, streets, and roads. 5 of the 9 council members voted against the ordinance, which effectively would have allowed the city to forcibly remove items blocking the public right-of-way. The ordinance was prompted by the city's inability to remove someone's belongings from a public area without a court order.
Staff reached out to law enforcement for help. However, law enforcement indicated that they could not address right-of-way obstructions absent a more specific ordinance defining when the right-of-way would be considered blocked.
It is unclear if the city requires a court order to remove belongings from city parks, which it has done in practice, first in 2021 and again this year. Monroe County officials say it will be at least 2027 before construction of a new jail is finished. The county says it aims to complete the design process by September 2024 and gather construction bids by January 2025. They still haven't decided on a site for the jail, and the city has been left out of the process.
Site selection, we haven't been involved in that in any way, I don't think. And I don't know how we're supposed to endorse it or react to it.
County officials want to further research the former Thompson site on Bloomington's southwest side as a potential jail site. Officials say they'd like to finalize a location within the next few months. The Ellettsville Town Council is looking for an additional $314,000 in property taxes from residents. That would be on top of the 4% tax levy set by the state. The council voted this week to petition the state for an excess levy. The town clerk says Ellettsville population has grown quickly in the last few years and assessed value has jumped. And that's forced Ellettsville property tax rate down from 0.8 to 0.4.
Last year I did a little synopsis, and in the whole county, we were the only municipality that actually lost tax rate. So, in other words, it doesn't allow you to take advantage of the growth.
Since January 2021, Ellettsville has added 207 single-family homes and 314 new apartment units. Hash says police calls increased 43% and fire department calls are up 62%. She says the town's hired a few new first responders, but needs additional funds to keep up with the growth. The Jackson County Jail has settled a lawsuit with the estate of an inmate who died there in 2021. Joshua McLemore was taken to the jail on the morning of July 20th, 2021 after being arrested for pulling a nurse's hair while being evaluated for a mental health episode. McLemore, who had a history of mental illness, spent the next 20 days in solitary confinement, rarely eating, drinking, or sleeping. During that period, he lost 45 pounds. By the time he was transported to a hospital in Seymour, he was too frail to lift his own body. The estate of McLemore filed a federal lawsuit in April, accusing the jail of failing to provide adequate treatment while McLemore was in custody. A man charged with murdering his Purdue University roommate has been determined fit to stand trial. Ji-Min Shah is accused of stabbing 20-year-old Varun Shadad in the head and neck when they roomed together. A Tippecanoe judge ruled in December that Shah was not able to prepare a defense after he argued an insanity plea. But Shah has been ordered to be transported from Logansport State Hospital back to Tippecanoe County Jail. Indiana University has led the county for nearly a year, and the percentage of calls to the 988 hotline answered in state at more than 90%. Indiana's 5 call centers average nearly 4,000 calls a month from Hoosiers in crisis. The average response time is 9 to 10 seconds. Officials say it's important to answer calls in state because it helps better connect people to resources, especially if they're not directly related to 988.
If the thing that really accelerated your crisis was something like housing insecurity or food insecurity, we can deal with the crisis, but then we can connect you directly to 211, who will be able to tell you where in your local community those resources are that you might be able to use.
In Perry, the state plans to expand the hotline, including the addition of assistance for those who don't speak English, video conferencing for the deaf and hard of hearing community, and a text option.
Thanks, Callie. When you picture State Road 46, the first things that come to mind are massive apartment buildings and gas station parking lots emptying onto a 4-lane highway. This type of roadway is called a stroad, a suburban fixture with the storefronts and housing of a street, but the high speed and traffic of a road. Reporter Ethan Sandweiss talks to Ellettsville residents about their frustrations and answers their questions about future plans for the stroad.
Business in Southeast Ellettsville is expanding, and some of those who live and work here feel the growing pains. Just step into a local coffee shop, and it won't take long to hear residents' thoughts about State Road 46.
Yeah, I mean, I'm high alert when I travel on 46 because it's a zoo out there. It really is. I mean, they're coming at you from every angle and the center, and it's a mess.
Amy Metter opened the Caffeinated Cook in February 2022. She takes 46 several times a day for work, and that routine drive is nerve-wracking.
I've been pulled out in front of many times because people have to just gun it to get out there because there's no turn lanes or stoplights or anything.
Until it was expanded in 2003, this stretch of highway was just a 2-lane road, as 46 remains on the west side between Ellettsville and Spencer.
State Road 46, the two-way section, is of course, at its time when it was developed, was viable. But over time, luckily, Ellettsville has developed, and with it, the road has not.
There are now enough ins and outs that you can be making a left turn, somebody's making a right turn. There's nothing to keep the two of you from hitting head on if you're not paying attention.
Business has been expanding on that road, with restaurants and apartment buildings popping up in the past few years. Growth is good for business, but it has led to more turnoffs and exits. Particularly concerning to some residents is a new 168-unit apartment complex off Smith Pike called 46 Flats. Residents working in Bloomington must exit right onto State Road 46, driving into Ellettsville first. So I'm driving back to Bloomington now, but I have to turn right here, which is actually going westwards into Ellettsville. That's one of the complaints I've heard about this place, is that a bunch of people here are gonna live in Bloomington, but they're gonna have to drive into downtown Ellettsville before turning around. State transportation data shows traffic can be a problem here, especially from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening. The city of Ellettsville hopes to channel development in a more pedestrian and traffic-friendly direction. Its strategic plan, Envision Ellettsville, lays out what it calls a context-sensitive growth plan. That would include roundabouts, traffic lights, and crosswalks. But State Road 46 is just that, a state road. That means changes like roundabouts and traffic lights would have to go through the Indiana Department of Transportation.
INDOT would have to first do some studies on the area to make sure that it's appropriate for those things to be in place there.
Many drivers feel unsafe on 46, but is it unsafe? Ellettsville Police Chief Jimmy Durnall doesn't think so.
There's been many houses obviously built around the area there, but we're expanding. I don't think we've compromised our safety at all.
INDOT agrees. A spokesperson says no intersections in the stretch of 46 between Hart Strait Road and Curry Pike showed up as what the agency defines as elevated crash locations.
We do try to implement safety measures in areas where we see a high number of pedestrians, as well as traffic going through the area.
Patience is wearing thin for some, but town manager Mike Farmer feels comfortable with the implementation process and says INDOT has been cooperative and communicative with the city.
The problems that we had in the 90s were solved by INDOT, and we've really kind of lived a pretty good life. And not only that, but they improved the aesthetics dramatically when they went through town. So we'll probably go through that same process again as we grow.
INDOT, police, and city officials agree that traffic is increasing, but not yet to the extent that State Road 46 has become dangerous.
You're asking me how we're going to solve our problems, and I'm saying we're going to plan for them. And we recognize that if we don't plan and improve our secondary roads, then we will have problems.
The city says there's no timeline for implementing Ellettsville's 46 corridor development plans. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Ethan Sandweiss.
And the city does confirm there is no timeline for implementing Ellettsville's 46 corridor development plan. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Bloomington's Board of Public Works has temporarily halted construction of the Bloomington Gateway project. And we take a tour of Exhibit Columbus, featuring 13 new works of art and architecture around the downtown. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
WFIU, the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music, and presenting partner Green & Schultz Trial Lawyers are hosting Swing in September in Dunn Meadow. All concerts are free, begin at 6:30 p.m., and take place every Friday in September. More at wfiu.org/swinginseptember or 812-855-1357.
Education is the key to preparing our youth for the future they're set to lead. That's why it's important for you to keep up with local and national news on important topics and issues surrounding education, from academic standards to education policies that directly affect your community. The WTIU News team is committed to providing information and helping you stay up to date with the issues that affect your future. Keep yourself educated and tune in to Indiana Newsdesk, your primary source for local and national in-depth news.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. A new COVID-19 booster vaccine is available to Hoosiers after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention updated its guidance. Community Health Network Chief Medical Officer Dr. Robin Ledyard says the new booster is proving to be effective at preventing disease and even better at preventing severe illness. She says the approach for the monovalent vaccine is similar to developing yearly flu shots.
When you do the flu shot, they take last year's data and kind of base it on that for next year's flu, knowing that the mutations won't be that great and that they assume that that vaccine will work. They're now doing the same with COVID.
The CDC recommends the newest booster shot for everyone 6 months and older. Indiana University's Student Health Center has COVID tests in stock as infections increase across the country. Tests are also available to students, faculty, and staff through delivery and on-campus vending machines at McNutt Residence Hall and the Indiana Memorial Union. Plans for the $1.1 million Bloomington Gateway project are on hold, at least for the time being. The Board of Public Works voted Tuesday to delay a sidewalk closure request, postponing construction on the project at Miller Showers Park. Residents who spoke at the meeting were critical of the project, and as Pat Bean reports, they want to see the project go away for good.
Approved in 2018, work on the Bloomington Gateway project was scheduled to begin next week. All that was needed was for the Bloomington Board of Public Works to sign off on a road and sidewalk closure request at its regular meeting earlier this week. But when residents found out about the monolith and saw the artist's rendering of it, the backlash began.
What the people who are attending in person and on Zoom are asking you to do is something like jury nullification. You, right now, are the people who can stop this.
Bloomington artist David Ebbinghaus, who has written about the John Paul Dario sculptures at the south end of the park, said he just found out about the monolith a couple days before the meeting.
This is like a vanity project.
So I just want to put it on record that this is a bad idea, bad design, bad placement, of no artistic value, and it doesn't fit in the park.
The city's public works director noted that the council approved the project 5 years ago and allocated the funding through the bicentennial bond. He repeatedly pointed out that it's not a public works project, but a parks department project, and Public Works just needed to okay the closures so construction could begin.
Again, I just remind the board that the purview of which you're being asked to approve is the use of the public right-of-way and not the art project, not the spending.
Board President Kyla Cox-Deckard said she had concerns not only with the monolith, but questions about some of the sidewalk work planned outside the park and how the project would fit with the current College Walnut corridor study.
Well, seeing as we don't have all the answers, and we're not going to have all the answers, I'm fully aware of that, I'd like to table this item.
So, at least until the board's next meeting on September 26th, the Gateway project is on hold. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Pat Bean.
The project had been scheduled to begin September 18th with board approval. Thousands of community members and visitors helped usher in Exhibit Columbus. This year, 13 new works of art and architecture are sprinkled throughout downtown Columbus. Joe Wren met with the leader of Landmark Columbus Foundation at an installation to preview the 4th Showcase of Public Design.
This whole project started nearly 2 years ago when we rebuilt an entire cycle of events to think about how we can advance the legacy of Columbus, Indiana with our community through art, architecture, and design. And so to get here, we've selected 13 artists and architects. We've had a symposium last year, we had design presentations this spring, and now we're in the middle of the exhibition. This one is called Public by Design, and we're purposely trying to create meaningful connections with our community and people around the country in the public spaces we share. And we're seeing that every day. This is called Machi, and it is designed, built by high school students in this county. It's crazy. This is a huge installation, all welded by students over the summer, and then they've selected and painted different things. They've custom fabricated these really cool sort of what they call a kit apart. I would start at the Columbus Area Visitor Center and then go across the street to see the Bartholomew County Public Library, which is a sensational building unto itself, and it's right next to an awesome church. But in the middle of it, there's an installation by Tatiana Bilbao Estudio, which is based in Mexico City. That studio is building stuff all around the world. They've created something here that is kind of a new way to think about what a library is. It's actually an external library where you can borrow things from the installations. It's bright blue, it's colorful, and there's some parts you can climb on. That's another installation right next to it by two professors of architecture at University of Virginia. It's called Scrapple. And what they've done is they've used pieces from around Columbus to build an installation, and they invited people to submit recipes. And so there's those things that are out there are actually menus and recipes for you, not menus, but those things are recipes for you to come and think about how you can put things together. There's a big one right in the middle of 4th and Washington, and this is an installation called Interoculus. It's made by Practice for Architecture and Urbanism based out of New York. They're trying to think about the center of Columbus in a new way. So we worked with our partners in the city, removed stoplights in the middle of downtown, and then built this dome that also has lights that light up at night in all these different colors. It, like many of the pieces, has become a focal point for people to come downtown and experience what this is all about. Well, I think one of the things that's amazing about Columbus is the global headquarters for Cummins is right here on 5th Street. And it's a beautiful campus, has a beautiful park. We have 3 installations that kind of surround that, all built by university professors. But that's also kind of an invitation to go out to Millrace Park, one of the country's prettiest parks right in the middle of downtown. And there's a giant bamboo structure out there called Echoes of the Hill. it's a structure that's as big as a hill out there. And so I don't want to give out too much. I think you got to come see Columbus and you have to experience this for yourself, because it's about different moments that are small and intimate, places for you to be in with friends. And then there's huge expansive places in Columbus for you to think about public space in its biggest way.
Looks like fun. The exhibit is up through the end of November. The Taven Jackson era begins Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis when the Indiana football team hosts Louisville. After splitting time at quarterback with Brandon Sorsby during the first 2 games of the season, head coach Tom Allen officially named Jackson the starter this week. Jackson is a redshirt freshman who transferred to IU from Tennessee after last season. He was excited to hear the news.
It was a dream come true. It's everything that you want to hear from a coach. Coming here, it's been a struggle. It's been hard, going through a quarterback battle. But that's life.
Well, I think he was excited. Saturday's game won't be the first at Lucas Oil Stadium for Jackson. He played in 3 high school state championship games there while at Center Grove. Indiana is 1-1 and Louisville 2-0 heading into Saturday's game. Kickoff is at noon, and the game will be broadcast on the Big Ten Network. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.